Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have done that yet. Sorry. Because I need to pin my video. There we go. Okay. Someone was unmuted and saying something. Was that on purpose? And because I just muted everyone, and I apologize if someone was speaking on purpose. Please unmute yourself and say whatever you were saying. No. Oh, looks like maybe it was Najda. Okay. I should warn you that my brain is a little fuzzy today. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I'm just like embodied chaos. What's that? It's the heat. Yes, it's from our walk yesterday. Zahira and I went and fried our brains in the sunshine yesterday, 100 degrees, going for a walk because I'm silly. Okay, so today is the birthday of Pir, I call him Pir, Hidayat Inayat Khan, that was the youngest son of our Sufi hero, Inayat Khan. And, okay, my Sufi hero. He doesn't have to be your Sufi hero, but he was born in 1917. I know. So if he were alive now, he would be 105 years old today. So it's probably a good thing he's not alive anymore. He died when he was 99, though, which is a serious good age. And I had the great joy of meeting him when he was 98. And I took a trip to Holland for a Sufi retreat specifically so I could meet him in person before he left his body. So we had a delightful, brief, but wonderful conversation. So we're going to start with the most exquisite composition that I have heard of his that has a three-part Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, and then a bunch of Allah. So you can sing any part you want throughout the whole thing, and they all work very nicely together. Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim. That's the first part. Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim. Here's the second part. Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim, 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 So I brought a book today. I know you're shocked, aren't you? It's Sufi Teachings, Lectures from Lake O'Hara. That is a compilation of talks that Hidayat gave. And I just pulled out these sweet little gems that I've brought to you before. But here they are. First one. The message of love, harmony, and beauty is like a stream flowing onwards along the riverside of our daily lives. And this stream is in movement, a movement of spiritual liberty, a movement of purity and wisdom, all of which is understood by the word Sufi. Ta-da! Here it is again. The message of love, harmony, and beauty is like a stream flowing onwards along the riverside of our daily lives. And this stream is in movement, a movement of spiritual liberty, a movement of purity and wisdom, all of which is understood by the word Sufi. Good introduction, huh? We should just start every class with that passage. But we're not going to. But we are going to say the invocation, which I think you all know. And who else has joined us? Hello, Abdullah. Okay. I think all y'all are very familiar with it, but I'll put it in here out of habit. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Amen. Okay, here's another little tidbit from Hidayat. Oh, it's in 4 different sections, though. It's for a Sufi. There's wisdom, religion, spirituality, and then mysticism. Are you ready? For a Sufi, wisdom is the art of being responsive to the opinion of others and tolerant of their preconceived ideas, while preserving one's own understanding from the limitations of dogma. Here it is 5 more times. Wisdom is the art of being responsive to the opinion of others and tolerant of their preconceived ideas, while preserving one's own understanding from the limitations of dogma. Did you get it a little more that time? You want it once more?
Sure.
It won't help, Sarah. Here it is anyway. For a Sufi, wisdom is the art of being responsive to the opinion of others. Are you good with that? Being responsive to the opinion of others and tolerant of their preconceived ideas, tolerant of other people's preconceived ideas, while preserving one's own understanding from the limitations of dogma. I think you could use, instead of preserving, you could say protecting. While protecting one's own understanding from the limitations of dogma. We don't want our own understandings to be pigeonholed by any particular dogma. Next, religion, for a Sufi. Religion is the path of liberation from the captivity of that illusion which arises when one assumes a duality in the unity of love, human and divine. 5 times won't help this one. Are you ready? Religion is the path of liberation. Liberation from what? From the captivity of that illusion which arises when one assumes a duality in the unity of love, human and divine. For a Sufi, religion is the path of liberation from the captivity of illusion that arises when one assumes duality instead of recognizing the unity which is love, human and divine. That was a gentle paraphrase, but maybe it helps. Next, are you ready for another one? Religion again. Here's religion one more time.
Paraphrase it more?
Yes. All right, it's the path of liberation. Religion is the path of liberation. Are we good with that? Religion is the path of teachings and practices that help you attain freedom. Okay? What is it that restricts or limits the freedom to begin with? The assumptions that arise from thinking that love has something to do with duality. Ha ha. Love has nothing to do with duality. Love is unity. And that applies to all forms of love, human and divine. Is that better? It's because I said ha ha in there somewhere. That always makes everything clear. Okay. Next, spirituality. Are you ready? Looking a little concerned. Spirituality. We're not going to do this all day. We're just getting a little attunement dose of Hidayat because it's his birthday. For a Sufi, spirituality is the process of clearing away all aspects of self-assertion, while at the same time searching for the divine impulse within oneself. There's a little more, which is the source and goal of all creation. You're like, I don't get it at all, but it's pretty. Let's say it again. Spirituality is the process of clearing away all aspects of self-assertion, while at the same time searching for the divine impulse within oneself which is the source and goal of all creation. I know. I was thinking the second phrase in there is a little bit of a distraction, so I'm going to leave that out and see if that helps. Spirituality is searching for the divine impulse within oneself, which is the source and goal of all creation. Spirituality is searching for the divine impulse within oneself. Oh, wow, I know. Lastly, I know all of our I's are crossed now and our brains have turned to mush, which I think is also the goal of spirituality and religion and wisdom in the Sufi perspective. So, lastly, for a Sufi, mysticism is an inner awakening to the reality of the undefinable. An inner awakening to the undefinable, which is experienced when the voice of the heart cries aloud. What does the voice of the heart cry aloud? This is not my body. This is the temple of God. That last part is in quotes because that was his father's zikr phrase in English. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. For a Sufi, mysticism is an inner awakening to the reality of the undefinable, which is experienced when the voice of the heart cries aloud, this is not my body. This is the temple of God. We could just spend all day on that, should we? No, we have other stuff to do. I'd like to visit the prayer Nabi, which I don't think all of y'all know. I have it for you. Hold on just a second. Zoom in, friends. Oh, what?
It's been updated.
It's been updated.
Yeah. You shuffled it.
I shuffled it and I added notes in it.
And now it says Surat United.
Yeah, I know. I have fixed it.
It's very exciting. Because I've been going back to my notes to try to remember what morning and midday stuff is because it's all over the place.
For those of you who don't know, so these are our little prayer booklets that I have recently redone. So now it's Sufi prayers of Surati Inayat, Interfaith Sufi Bath, and Hazrat Pir Murshid Inayat Khan. So here's, I adjusted the invocation so it says towards the one, and we'll have these at retreat next month, don't worry. There's the 10 Sufi thoughts, but then each of the prayers I put, like Psalm, that's one of the morning prayers. I know, I'm sorry I didn't do that before. And then there's also the affirmations, morning, midday. We're not going to do all this right now, I'm just showing you, because all of you in Zoomland are like, what are they talking about? What do they have? And I don't want you to feel left out. So we're just going to visit the prayer Nabi.
You have to like it.
Yes. You're welcome. All right, so the prayer Nabi, it's in the chat window for you if you need it, and it's somewhere in here. Oh, it's in the center of your little mistlets. Okay. A torch in the darkness, a staff during my weakness, a rock in the weariness of life. Thou, my master, make earth a paradise. Thy thought gives me unearthly joy. Thy light illuminates my life's path. Thy words inspire me with divine wisdom. I follow in thy footsteps which lead me to the eternal goal. Comforter of the brokenhearted, support of those in need, friend of the lovers of truth, blessed Master, thou art the prophet of God. Amen. Okay, friends. So we're continuing on with our monthly explorations of the 10 Sufi thoughts and the 40 rules. And today we are visiting the 8th of the Sufi thoughts. Oh, wait, no, wait, we are doing that, but not yet. First, we're going to do the second of the golden rules, which is not in those little booklets. The second golden rule is, my conscientious self, be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. My conscientious self, be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Do y'all know what that means? Nobody's nodding emphatically. I know. So Ayesha started nodding like this. And then kind of gradually moved to this. But I wouldn't say it was an emphatic nod. She's like, I'm nodding. Uh-huh. All right. Firm in faith. I actually figured we would spend this whole Sufi circle talking about what that means. What does it mean to be firm? And I'm serious, to be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Here are some things that Murshid had to say about this. Are you ready? This is from the supplementary papers that are not published in one of the books, but it's a set of talks that he gave to Murids during summer school classes on the theme of belief and faith. Very often we confuse the word belief with faith. Belief is a settled thought. Belief is a settled thought. As long as a thought is wavering, it is not a belief. When a person says, I wonder, is it so or is it not so? That does not mean there is belief. One may appear to believe, but one does not believe. Belief means the thought has settled in the mind and it is difficult to root it out. Are we good with that? And yet, belief is not necessarily faith, because faith is the culmination of belief. Faith is the culmination of belief. I saw one nod for that one. Faith is that belief which no longer is a settled thought, but is the very being of the person. Are you getting it? Although we use the words faith and belief in our everyday life, when we come to analyze it and understand it from a metaphysical point of view, belief and faith are quite different. People have used the word faith for a person's religion, but that is another thing. If you say, Christianity is my faith, that is not talking about the center integrated reality of your being. Then it's a set of external doctrines of beliefs that are adopted as a group, right? In the Hindustani language, they separate the word faith, which is used in everyday language, from the other word, which is used in connection with one's spiritual evolution. That faith is called yaqeen. And that yaqeen develops into what they call iman. So you could say yaqeen and iman both mean faith, but one of them is the everyday use and one of them is the integrated essence of your being. Yeah? Yaqeen is a settled belief. Iman is the culmination of faith. The thought is, or the rule is, my conscientious self, be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Does it feel worrisome?
It's not.
Yes.
Only to the extent that one knows one is failing to do that.
So let's talk about that. In what ways do you feel like you're failing to do that? Or in what ways does it feel worrisome or uncomfortable because there's some self-judgment that there's a failure to do that? And in that case, there is a sense of like, oh, that's what I want to be doing, right? Like there's an inherent acknowledged, however conscious that is in ourselves, it seems pretty obvious to me that all of us can go, I want to feel firm in my faith regardless of what's happening in my life. Is that clear? Is that true for all of us? And do you feel like that helps you in some way? And if so, in what way does it help you? Those aren't like, how do you do it? But part of figuring out how you do it is understanding first that it's important, and then why it's important. Like, what do you actually get out of that? Why is that a good thing? Ayesha.
What came to my mind when you said that was that, for me, it helps the faith. When I go off course slightly, it helps me get back on course. Like, I feel like, all of a sudden I can go off course and I go, oh, this is not really what I truly believe. I'm using that more as faith. I guess I don't use the word faith in my day-to-day life.
That's fine.
But I find having that focus, that faith, or that intention allows me to get back on track much faster than if I didn't have it.
Yeah.
So I have a sense of where I want to be. So, and I have quite a few tools. We have a lot of Sufi tools to get back on track.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of more of a detour. Than being completely blown off course and like finding myself on a entirely different island that I don't want to be on.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Very nicely described. Did y'all hear that? Out in Zoom land? Not some of you did and some of you did not. Let's see if I can paraphrase something like Ayesha is describing that having this sense of faith keeps her from feeling that she's blown off course, or when there's a sense of meandering or taking a detour, that it brings her back into the orientation of the qualities that are important and that feel right and aligned with her intentions. Something like that.
For me, the word remember came up. Kind of like you're saying, to remember. But I like the way you put it with the want is there, and that's important. To want to remember and want to come back. Because if you don't have that, then you're just going to go stay over there for quite a while. So, yeah. So, both of those things.
Yeah. Did you hear what Salim said?
I have to speak up, don't
You don't have to do anything.
It's gonna help to get a little microphone.
Something like the key, the trick is, or like the thing that seems important to Salim is the wanting to remember. So the most important word that he focused in on was remembering. That was the first thing. And then wanting to remember. That is figuring out why it's important so that it's actually what you want to be doing. That if you don't actually want that, then you're just going to keep wandering off in different directions all the time. There's something about being really conscious about keeping that desire and that value at the front of our awareness. Did you have something else, Ayesha?
Yeah, well, it's maybe very similar, but I was just thinking that I really see the benefit of daily practice and how that contributes to this, because daily practice is keeping in the forefront, it's keeping being your focus on what you want, your faith, and so it's not far away for you to find again if you're starting, if something pulls you off track. I'm really getting the benefit of daily practice and how this creates faith or supports you maintaining faith or cultivating faith.
Yeah, nice. Daily practice helps keep the faith or the orientation toward faith more present, active, aware, in a consistent rhythm. Those weren't the words that she used, but. Right. Zoomlanders. That sounds like Zoolanders, doesn't it? That's not a good association. All right. You friends
To do blue
friends in
steel,
the
you have
Zoom. No turning left. All right, what feels important to this for you in this, Sophia?
My mind went to a totally different place because I'm thinking of beliefs, and I'm just going through a program of studying the beliefs that I have that are settled thoughts. That makes total sense, and they're all related. I don't know if I should say the word all, but many are related to like my ego experiences, you know. So for example, I had an experience with this person and my belief became these people are such and such, you know. And so that makes sense. And but then how do beliefs then, does that relate at all to getting to faith? I don't know how that the one goes to the other. I'm rambling a little bit, but I wrote down, be firm in my integrated essence of being, right? Those are the words you used for faith.
Yeah,
That was helpful.
good.
But yeah, I mean, am I understanding beliefs correctly?
It sounded correct as far as your description of like, oh, I have this thought, and that thought is reinforced, and it becomes a solid, concretized thought, and now it's a belief. So now I believe this. I'm carrying this judgment, this assessment. This is like what I know to be true about this thing. You didn't do it in that way. I'm not mocking you or anything. I'm just saying like that's my animated way of describing that concretized thought assessment as belief. What you described then is trying to understand how it goes from belief to faith. And that's not actually how it works. That belief is not the same thing as faith. That you could put these things on a spectrum, and I have seen, read, heard Murshid describe these things as a progression, not that one leads to the next and leads to the next and leads to the next, but rather you could go, what are the qualities of my understandings, my knowledge, my integrated self, my passing fleeting fancies of thought, and those do not lead to each other, but it helps us to be able to understand what is actually happening in the qualities of our thoughts, our feelings, our awareness, and not to confuse them. So it's more about compartmentalizing them than about putting them on a spectrum of this leads to the next, right? They don't necessarily, and I don't think that it is likely that they are directly related to each other in that way. It's more a matter of like, oh, I have this thought. Is it my faith? No, it's a thought. Is it going to become a faith? No, it's a thought. And if we can look at it and recognize it as a thought, then we don't get tangled up in it or start orienting around it as if it is a central part of our being. So it's actually keeping them separate that's useful.
I still don't understand
So
where faith comes from.
Yeah, okay. I have a question from Rahima and a follow-up from Sophia. Sophia, go ahead, but we're going to come back here, so help me tag that. Sophia?
talk a little bit more about, you said faith is, okay, I might have caught this wrong. I put down faith is the culmination of belief. Did I get, yeah, talk more about that.
Yeah, I think that's where Rahima's question came into. And, okay. here's the rule that is the essence of our exploration, and I think it's good to keep this as our orientation so we can do tangents and we can understand and explain and describe things in different directions, but really it's about helping us understand and implement this particular value as a rule in our lives, right? So here's the rule again. My conscientious self. Again, we're just calling to our highest ideal-oriented self. That is the best possible version of ourselves. My conscientious self. Be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. So let's not confuse ourselves in thinking that this means be stubborn about your convictions. That's not what it means. I like the word steadfast that Kyra put in the chat window. Be steadfast in your faith through life's tests and trials. That means when things are difficult and confusing, and when we are tempted to lose track of what our faith actually is, let's continually remind ourselves to come back to this orientation, to what is the grounded, integrated essence of our beings. Okay. Nice. Okay. So then Murshid tries to describe this in different ways, and often it's about just defining the language that he's using. Well, what do you mean by that, Murshid? What do you mean by firm? What do you mean by faith? What do you mean by the tests and trials of life? So the other things that I brought in from the supplementary papers were not his explicit comment. It wasn't that he said, let me explain that in this moment, but this is one of the ways that he described it that I feel is useful. That is saying, be firm in faith does not mean that you need to be loyal to your beliefs, because your beliefs are concretized thoughts. And those, thank you, Sophia, for that example, the concretized thoughts can be about an experience that you have been through, a way of seeing and understanding someone's behavior, passing judgment on that behavior, being intolerant. Sophia, again, I'm not saying that you are being intolerant in your assessment. I'm just saying that, the commentary and the further explanations are, let's see if we can recognize where we have concretized our thoughts and be willing to let go of those things and rather orient ourselves toward our faith. Okay, so then he's trying to describe the thought as a momentary activity of the mind. Okay, I think we're good with that. And sometimes that happens all by itself. That's just the imagination and the creative flow of the mind. Nothing wrong with that, but don't believe it. Okay. If you start impressing those things consistently, they become your beliefs, which is part of doing daily practices, which is something like when we want to shape our beliefs of what we actually think and feel in alignment with our values and the ways that we want, then we start shaping our thoughts and our concentration. Thank you again, Kyra, putting good words in the chat window. Then we start shaping, pointing our concentration in the directions that we want, that help us experience things and ourselves, shape our personalities and our quality of thoughts in the directions that we choose. Are those things what our faith is? No, because faith is something even deeper than the beliefs and the concentration of thoughts that we can be in charge of all the time. Faith is the essence of your being. Now, these things can relate to each other, but they don't necessarily. So when he says the culmination of belief, I think that language in itself is confusing for us, because we think that means that if we cultivate the beliefs in the right way, they'll turn into faith. Not necessarily. You could say that faith is the ultimate fruition of the beliefs. That is something that is already inherently part of your being, that you come in with a sense of knowing of yourself and of knowing ultimately God. That's not something that you create. And he would say also that faith is something that you know as absolutely irrefutably true, even when there is no evidence to support it. Even when there is no evidence to support it. Because faith is not based on something that is information oriented. It's not based on your experience, on what you have learned, on what you have seen and observed. It is based on the essence of your own being. I heard somebody unmuted out there in Zoom land. I'm not sure if that was on purpose. And Ayesha.
So what I got out of that, or what comes to my mind, is that your faith is more inherent. Faith is here, and it's almost like it's getting veiled. Like when we say we're losing, we're not in contact with our faith. We get off course. It's more like it's veiled, and so it's sort of about uncovering it again. Like the faith hasn't disappeared, and we're not really trying to create the faith. The faith's already inherently here. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you're alluding to?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, at the same time, we could say anybody who comes to these things and says, I don't know what my faith is, or I used to have a really strong sense of my faith, and that was at the center of my awareness, but I've lost it, and I don't know how to find it again. That happens a lot. So if you have that experience right now, or have had that at some point, it's okay. You're normal and natural and human, and that's what happens. And there is this sense of the faith doesn't go away. It always has been there, but we do lose sight of it, that we do get distracted from it. And the thing that distracts us from it is believing our thoughts.
So I have,
Yes.
which is that part about faith being the culmination of your beliefs. It's like, well, you have to kind of believe that I don't know, something to the effect of, and I'm sure it varies widely from person to person, but something to the effect of God is. It's helpful to me to be connected to God. I want to be connected. Right? If
Yeah.
you don't believe that, it's pretty hard to move off that spot and renew
Yes.
the sense of faith.
Yes. So then we can find our way back, or find our way into an experience of and confidence in and orientation around our faith and firmness in faith by working actively with our thoughts and beliefs. We can bring ourselves consciously back to that experience and to train ourselves to have a relationship with our own faith, our own deep knowing of what is ultimately true of our own beings and the capital R reality of life. We can't choose that. We can't force it, but we can choose it. That's what we're doing all the time, friends. That's what every single one of us is doing every time we show up for one of these classes, these groups, these conversations, the noon Zooms, the weekly meditations. It is really inviting ourselves to be conscious of and to orient in the direction of our highest values all the time. It is natural for us to get confused and distracted from that. And it is natural for that to ebb and flow and to change with the circumstances of our lives, where sometimes it feels very natural and very easy, where we can wake up every morning feeling like, I know what I'm about. I know who I am connected, I am resonating with the wisdom of life and God, and having a clear sense of focus, of selfhood. That can be a consistent thing for a while. And then we can go like, what happened to it? I'm not feeling it. I still think it, I still believe it, but am I feeling it? Not so much. Why not? Because life happens, because we're in a constant state of motion, every aspect of our beings. Things change. And the more we can bring our consistency, our firmness of faith, the more ease, equanimity, love, generosity, optimism, goodness, tolerance, kindness, graciousness, freedom, the more freedom we experience. Kyra, would you like to say something about the message you put in the chat window? It looks like you're not muted, but I'm not hearing you. You might have a different microphone on, or
I'm not sure right now.
you're good. We hear you.
Oh, okay. Not necessarily. All that for that. I mean, just, I think the only thing I can think to add of, for me being here, and you've heard me say this, it feels like true north, and I always do it like this, so there's something about like that third eye, the compass, that.
Yeah.
Which definitely goes beyond my egoic state of it's not a decision. Actually, for me, it's never been. It literally felt like one day something was turned on in this, and there's no capacity to turn. It's not about deciding whether I'm in it or not, or even when I'm like off the path or whatever you might want to call it, there's still this steadfast intention or drive towards whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hearing in there, Kyra, that seems really important is that you have a desire to pay attention to it. That you had this awareness, this orientation showing up within you. I think it's good to call it an orientation when you refer to it as true north. and we all have our own versions of that. And some of us have a deliberate intention around listening to it, around valuing it, around paying attention to it.
You know what though, even the word desire like implies there's a choice. And for me, it just, I can like mark the day, it just is.
Yeah.
And that's just my own experience, but there's definitely desire with that isness.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Kyra. Ayesha.
I know I'm
We're on a roll today. I love it. Bring it on.
this topic is something very interesting to me, or important to me. What really came to my being as I've been sitting here asking myself what takes me out of faith, like, is very particular kind of thought. So I thought I would bring it up.
Yeah.
Is this is not part of God? Is when I get into this. Well, this can't be part of God. This can't be God's will, or like, and it's specifically right, like mass destruction, terrible things happening. I think that's the thing that will throw me most out of faith, because I'm like, well, that can't be part of God. Even though I know we do want to, everything's part of God. like, intellectually, but to really grow, give that in the core of my being, that everything is God's, part of God, is really, I think that's where my faith can waver.
Yeah.
To see this destruction, sadness, suffering in the world.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it is. Ayesha's thought was about a question of what is it that pulls me out of faith? And the answer is the thoughts that come from observing the suffering in the world and thinking, how can this be God? Like the questions or judgments of, this is not God. This is not God. And that's painful and irreconcilable. That those again were not the words that she used, but we can all agree with that. Yeah.
I did a meditation last night that helps me, that I understand better because of what we're talking about.
Hmm.
That it was like, may I not fall into indifference, which makes a lot of sense. I can fall off of that orientation into indifference related to the tests and the trials.
Can you define indifference?
No, probably not. I just feel it.
Okay. I understand that you're describing a process of a meditation that was not your language choices necessarily. Murshid actually celebrates indifference as one of the wings on the heart that is actually a really important value quality. But I'm guessing that our definitions for it would be very different. So, indifference. The wings of the heart, Murshid describes as discipline and indifference. But it's you could, in that case, use indifference as non-attachment or freedom and spaciousness and a lack of grasping. And what you're describing sounds more like indifference as apathy or uncaring. Yeah, thank you.
A self-protective, yeah. Apathy, uncaring, yeah.
Yeah. But self-protection is actually tremendous caring.
That's true.
All right, my conscientious self, be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Khadija Noor, did you have something?
Sarah, I unmuted myself right when you were starting to talk.
Rakiba, okay.
So I also just quickly wanted to kind of touch on this concept still, because I love this idea of clarifying and kind of breaking down, articulating really these abstract terms of belief and faith. And as you were reading the passage, I was really feeling how like faith feels so embodied to me. It's just sort of like the vibration and the frequency that we just are. It's not, it has nothing to do with what we're saying, what we're thinking, what we're praying, or anything. It's just sort of like, it is like each of us have our own embodied frequency. Like everything is energy. And I love thinking about belief systems because I have a very strong ego and I have had lots of humility come my way through thinking I knew something and having this thought be so rooted, and then having, the experience of, however, realizing like, wow, that thought wasn't even true. And I was so attached to it. And I like really get convicted and dig my heels in. I have to kind of watch myself. but I love just this idea of, I mean, to me, beliefs are so important, like I love feeling into my belief systems and that sort of discerning wisdom and taking in all the energy from my environment of being an earthling on this planet right now. But I really appreciate this like reminder of how the frequencies that we are just are. It's just this embodied energy. Just like our other friend was saying, like the true north, like she feels it from the third eye. And it's just, it's so beautiful and so profound. And, on a side note, when I really felt my energy of my faith that came into being, it was when I first left my first full moon ritual with you, like 20 years ago. And I left and I felt so grounded and so connected and mesmerized, but also just like clear and just, I remember it was snowing and it was nighttime and I looked up at the stars and it was like, wow, I feel it has nothing to do with what my mind is trying to, break it down as. It's just the embodied feeling. So yeah, and I like all the clarification because I was like, Sophia, I was also feeling this like connection, almost like an equation. It's like this equation of how belief and faith are like in this infinity, like never ending stream. And so it's been interesting to kind of hear you, Sarah, like kind of pull it apart even more of like how, like, what is their connection? This kind of question of understanding that. So yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Raquel. Khadija Noor, I think that you were unmuted for a moment. I don't know if that was on purpose.
I was. Back a few because other people have talked, but when you talked about feeling it, being in the flow and really feeling it, one of my thoughts is that ego, when you have to feel it, like when I do healing, sometimes I feel like, whoa, I really feel it. Sometimes I don't, and when I'm working on somebody, and I've always, well, pretty much equated the need to feel it feels like ego, and just knowing that it's there, whether you can feel it or not. So I just wondered if it put questions in my mind when you talked about that.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Khadija Noor. All these different descriptions, and it's not just the language that y'all use, but I love that each person describes this in a unique language that is personally relevant and useful. And the things that are about the quality of thought and feeling and knowing, and the things that you're conscious of or that are unconscious or like below the conscious awareness, but that are just there as the reality. And each of you has your own way of describing what you notice in your own awareness, in your own experience, and discerning the difference between those momentary thoughts, the beliefs, and the faith, what that actually is for you, how you recognize it and orient toward it. So, or choose whether you want to orient toward it or not. So thank you all for all of the different language and descriptions and visceral ways of explaining those things. So for any of you who are hearing those things and doing your own thought of like, oh, I wonder what that is for me, then these are ways that you can explore and consider and try and see if you don't know what that orientation is for you, or how to recognize what is actually faith versus thought or belief. And I'm so happy that some of y'all have recently been pointing out to me that one of my trademark questions is that true? And I ask that question all the time. I didn't realize that I did until it was like, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so ago it came into my awareness. But I love it. And that question really helps us cut through a whole lot of the belief structures and the thoughts and the whole spectrum of the thoughts that are concretizing in our awareness and that we're glomming onto and developing loyalties to. And so I feel that it is essential, like absolutely necessary, important for us to be willing to ask that clear, honest question about, is that true? And to be willing to uproot any of our thoughts, feelings, beliefs that are not ultimately true, but that we have come to believe are true. So thank you, Rakiba, for describing that in exactly that way as well. And I love that you're able and willing to go like, I get fiercely attached to my thoughts and beliefs about things, and then go, wow, that wasn't even true. And that in itself is a courageous, beautiful, healthy, and also a terrifying ego move, that, or anti-ego move. You know what I mean? It's like being willing to actually question those things and go, wow, and to be able to uproot and let go of any of the thoughts and beliefs that we have grabbed onto is so beautiful and powerful and excellent. So multiple gold stars for any of you who ever bring the question of, is that true? And go, wow, that's not true. I have been thinking and feeling that that was true for years, and it's really just not true at all. Yeah. Okay.
I have something to add to the list
Salim.
of descriptions and
Yes,
things. And,
please.
along the lines of true north and the vibrations and the equation. I love that one. But and I've had this sense in the, not that long ago, the word homesick and this longing to not just desire to stay, but a real longing to be there. And it feels like being homesick. When I was a little kid, I was often, if I tried to go have a sleepover, I invariably would end up having to get the parent to call my mom because I would be so homesick that I'm not there and not with her. And so it feels a lot like that. And I've had to learn to live with that longing. And I have to remind myself that it's not necessarily homesick for your house. But there's sort of a structure there, you know, an idea, a thought, but it's beyond that, of course. Yeah, so homesick is the word, and home. So maybe faith is home for me.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Do you get that? Maybe faith is home. Okay. Here's an affirmation from Murshid on this theme. We'll do this as a breath concentration for a couple of minutes. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord, standing unshaken through wind and storm. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord. Standing unshaken through wind and storm. I'll say it several times, and if you'd like to put the first half of it on the inhalation and the second half of it on the exhalation, you're welcome to do that. But whatever your natural rhythm is fine. I put it in the chat window for those of you in Zoom land if it helps you to see the words for it. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord, standing unshaken through wind and storm. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord, standing unshaken through wind and storm. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord, standing unshaken through wind and storm. Let my faith be as firm as mountains, Lord, standing unshaken through wind and storm. And while we continue breathing this phrase and allowing this concentration to keep us company, I want to say a couple more things. One is that faith is relaxed. Faith is an absolutely comfortable, grounded knowing that does not require effort. We don't cling to faith. We don't force faith. If we can recognize that faith is the stable, solid ground of our being, then we can completely let go of every tension and feel completely at home in that deep knowing. Even looking around the room here, I can't see it so much on the Zoom, but around the room I can see this be firm and faith, like a clenched jaw and forehead, and like there's a tension that's like must be firm, must be relaxed. So seeing if you can invite this understanding that is a simple, true awareness. You don't have to chase it. It is the essence of your being. You don't have to strain for it. You can relax into it. You can say, we don't need to brace ourselves or to prepare ourselves or to arm ourselves in any way. It is turning our heart's awareness toward what is already true, what is constantly present. It is the most reliable, consistent aspect of ourselves. When you feel firm in your faith, you feel at ease. You feel safe and secure. And when you are safe and secure, you are relaxed, comfortable. And life can keep happening all around you. Circumstances, demands, discomforts, even the suffering in the world. And you feel your own stability. That is not a lack of caring. And it's not blindness. It's simply having a confidence in your own ground. Let's do some recitations of Ya Mumin. That is the beautiful name of God that means embodied faith. That is the most stable, tangible, consistent trust. Ya Mu'min. 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 While we're reciting Ya Mu'min, I'm not doing a very good job of concentrating because my brain is wandering off to the blessing that Piro Murshid Inayat Khan received from his teacher, Abu Hashim Madani, in which Murshid said he thought this was the strangest blessing. His teacher didn't say, go be healthy, go be happy, be strong, be courageous. No, he said, may your faith be strengthened. And Murshid described his feeling of confusion and maybe some sense of disappointment in that blessing. Like that was not the blessing that he expected or thought he wanted. May your faith be strengthened. And he reflected on that and said that years later he would be thinking about that and think, that was the most important blessing I could possibly have received. May your faith be strengthened. That is, in anything that we are going to do in life, in everything that we encounter, in everything that we are asked, that we are constantly being challenged and shaken and questioned and pulled in every possible direction in life. And the most important blessing is, may your faith be strengthened. Ya Mu'min. Here's another very short passage from Murshid on this theme, and then we're going to move on to a different theme. Here's the last one. Self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. Self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. And in faith is the secret of the fulfillment or non-fulfillment of every desire. I know. Here you go. Self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. And in faith is the secret of the fulfillment or non-fulfillment of every desire. Here's the second part again. I know, I see Tajali's face is like, huh? In faith is the secret of the fulfillment or non-fulfillment of every desire. Back to the beginning. Self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. True self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. That's not arrogance. It's not pridefulness. It's not willfulness. Self-confidence is the true meaning of faith. And in faith is the secret. I'm going to cut this one in half. In faith is the secret of the fulfillment of every desire. Any desire that can ever be fulfilled will be through faith. And also, any desire that will not be fulfilled will be because of a lack of faith. All right, it's 11:55. We have 5 minutes till our noon Zoom-ins, and that's probably not enough time to start something else. So we should start something else anyway. The 8th Sufi Thought. We're going on to the next Sufi Thought. Are you ready? There is one object of praise, the beauty which uplifts the heart of its worshipper through all aspects, from the seen to the unseen. There is one object of praise, the beauty which uplifts the heart of its worshipper through all aspects, from the seen to the unseen. This actually ties in so beautifully to faith. At least. There is one object of praise, the beauty which uplifts the heart of its worshipper through all aspects, from the seen to the unseen. I put it in the chat window for our Zoom friends, and it's in the front of your missalette if you want to see it. It is number 8. There is one object of praise. Are we okay with that phrase even? There's one object of praise. We're already confused. There's one object of praise. That's where we send our love, our appreciation, our celebration, our adoration. The object is the direction or the goal of it, where we put it. Well, I was trying to say put it and point it at the same time, and it turned into point it. There's one object of praise, the beauty which uplifts the heart of its worshipper through all aspects, from the seen to the unseen. We have a minute and a half. It is said in the Hadith, God is beautiful and God loves beauty. The Hadith are the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad outside of the Quran. This expresses the truth that man who inherits the Spirit of God has beauty in him and loves beauty, although that which is beautiful to one is not beautiful to another. It's nice that he acknowledges that, huh? Everyone's perception of beauty is unique to their own being. Excellent. Man cultivates the sense of beauty as he evolves and prefers the higher aspect of beauty to the lower. You might not find all the same things beautiful now that you found beautiful when you were a child. I think coffee is much more beautiful now than I thought it was when I was 7. Evolving toward the higher aspects of beauty. I did admire donuts when I was a child as well. When one observed the highest vision of beauty in the unseen by a gradual evolution from praising the beauty in the seen world, then the entire existence becomes one single vision of beauty. Did you get it? We'll come back to it later. It's time for our noon prayers. We'll work on orienting toward the one object of praise that is beauty through the invocation. So, hello, Aliella. Welcome. And hello, Zebulon. Welcome. And anyone else pop in here? Okay. So let's start with the invocation in English, and then Aliella, I hope you'll be willing to share the invocation in Russian, because we're orienting on beauty. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
Единому совершенству любви, гармонии и красоты, единственно сущему, объединяясь со всеми просветленными душами, которые образуют воплощение Мастера, путеводный дух.
Thank you, Aliella. The breath of earth, in and out through the nose, I inhale divine light and life. I radiate divine life and light. Breath of water, breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth. I inhale divine light and life. I radiate divine life and light. Breath of the breath of fire, breathing in through the mouth, breathing out through the nose. I inhale divine light and life. I radiate divine life and light. Breath of air, in and out through the mouth. I inhale divine light and life. I radiate divine life and light. And the breath of ether, breathing through the nose, or however is natural for you. Pranayas. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, through the rays of the sun, through the waves of the air, through the all-pervading life in space, purify and revivify me, and I pray, heal my body, heart, and soul. I changed my mind about what we're going to sing today. So now we're going to sing Jamil Allah, Ishq Allah Jamil. So Jamil is a beautiful name of God. It's not part of the 99, but it's part of all of the 99 because they're all beautiful names, and Jamil means beauty. Say Jamil Allah, Ishq Allah Jamil, that is the love that is God is beauty. Jamil Allah, Jamil Allah, Ishq Allah Jamila, Ishkala Jani. Prayer of protection. But then we're not done because we have another 15 minutes of our Sufi circle. I come from a perfect source. I am bound to a perfect goal. The light of the perfect being is kindled in my soul. I live and move and have my being in God. Nothing in the past or present has power to touch me. I rise above all. Here's everybody that's in the room right now. Okay, friends. If you're wandering off to the rest of your day, lots of love, and we'll see you tomorrow for noon Zooms. Oh, tomorrow morning is Kinship Coffee with Mirabai. It's a different Zoom link, but let me know if you need it. That's at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. Okay, so 15 more minutes. Beauty. Ready? Let's do this thing. One object of praise, the beauty that uplifts the heart of its worshiper. Okay. So the gist is we are supposed to start out by loving the dense, finite things of the world. That's how we learn love, right? Those are the things that we find beautiful. And the more we evolve, the more wisdom we accumulate, the more perspective we gain, the more we move our object of praise toward aspects of beauty that are more eternal, that are more transcendent, that are more lasting. Yeah. That just keeps moving in our lives, hopefully. No, I think it does. Okay. Let's see. Man has worshipped God, beholding the beauty of sun, moon, stars, and planets, has worshipped God in plants, in animals, has recognized God in the beautiful merits of human beings, and has, with perfect view of beauty, found the source of all beauty in the unseen. Good? Let's see. The Sufi, realizing this, worships beauty in all its aspects and sees the face of the beloved in all that is seen and the beloved's spirit in the unseen. So wherever one looks, one's ideal of worship is before one. In quotes, everywhere I look, I see thy winning face. Everywhere I go, I arrive at thy dwelling place. Okay. I want to bring us back to Hidayat. Happy birthday, Hidayat. Oh, there's a picture of him on the back. Look, there he is. A rather young version of the old Hidayat. I'm showing it around the room. Adjusting for the age of the eyes in the room. Okay. Oh, this is such a sweet little one. Are you ready? Little gem. It's 5 little lines right here. Once the doors of the heart are open, the feeling of humility awakens. Finding oneself face to face with the divine presence, the living God within. Here it is again. Once the doors of the heart are open, the feeling of humility awakens. finding oneself face to face with the divine presence, the living God within. Okay, one more time. Once the doors of the heart are open, the feeling of humility awakens, finding oneself face to face with the divine presence, the living God within. Don't worry, I'll send it to you later. You'll have it. I'm good like that. I send you the readings after the Sufi circles. Okay. This one is a little bit longer, that long, but it's worth it. You ready? Oh, Sufi, did you know that brotherhood and sisterhood is the ship in which we are sailing on the great waters of love, harmony, and beauty? Guided by the compass of the spirit of guidance, and driven by the energy of spiritual liberty, heading toward the goal of the annihilation of ego, where one may begin at last to realize that the sailor is verily the divine presence sailing in the past, present, and future on the waves of our illusion. Doesn't it just pull you up and down and side to side? And you're like, I don't know where we're going. Let's go along for the ride. So here it is again, now that you have some sense of what to expect. This time you'll get like 20% of it. Oh, Sufi, did you know that brotherhood and sisterhood is the ship in which we are sailing on the great waters of love, harmony, and beauty? Guided by the compass of the spirit of guidance, and driven by the energy of spiritual liberty, heading toward the goal of the annihilation of ego, where one may begin at last to realize that the sailor is verily the divine presence, sailing in the past, present, and future on the waves of our illusion. One more time, and then we're going to be like, well, we still don't get it, but that's as good as we're going to get for right now. And then you'll have it later. I know, right? Oh, Sufi, did you know that brotherhood and sisterhood, he actually used the phrase brotherhood and sisterhood. I didn't modify that. Brotherhood and sisterhood is the ship in which we are sailing on the great waters of love, harmony, and beauty. Guided by the compass of the spirit of guidance, and driven by the energy of spiritual liberty, heading toward the goal of the annihilation of ego, where one may begin at last to realize that the sailor is verily the divine presence, sailing in the past, present, and future on the waves of our illusion.
I love this guy.
I love this guy too. Thank you, Hidayat. So, Pir Hidayat died at the age of 99. That was 6 years ago. And he was the chief general representative. That was the phrase that he used for it. That is the Pir, the spiritual director, the leader of the Sufi Movement International that was headquartered in the Netherlands. And he carried it until he had, I think he resigned from his post and passed his responsibilities on 2 years, I think. It was 2 years before he died. but he was completely lucid, just like absolutely brilliant and energetic and powerful, and also very humble and very fun. He was very playful. He giggled a lot. He would just laugh about things. And when he would speak in groups of people, he very much embodied his father. And when you've heard the radio broadcast of Murshid speaking in English, lecture style, Hidayat did that, where he would just shout the important words, you know? And so absolute dedication, sincerity, and joy. He really embodied joy. And also elegance. Like, he wore a three-piece suit all the time. He was just always in a suit. That Layla had invited him to the Maui camp to be a guest teacher there a couple of times, and she said that the first time he went, he wore a suit
Always.
every single day. And then the second time they invited him, and they bought him some aloha shirts, which he did wear. You know, there's something really amazing and beautiful to be said for the people that, you know, Hidayat was born into this, right? Murshid was his father. And Murshid died when, I think Hidayat was 6 years old when his father died. And, but he kept this at the center of his work for his entire life, and was leading this organization and guiding murids and giving classes, leading practices, and reading Murshid's teachings and offering commentary on them. And so this little book that I brought today, it's very short, it's a very small book, that is a collection of talks that he gave on all kinds of different Sufi thoughts, practices, perspectives, philosophy. This one is 128 pages, so very short. And all of the books that I have of Hidayat's are transcriptions of talks that he gave, and most of them are even smaller than this one. But he was very much about self-mastery. And like Murshid's 40 thoughts or rules that we've been visiting each week for all of this year, a lot of Hidayat's teachings are like that. Like, here's how to be really unflinchingly responsible for yourself. Here's how to look very honestly and cleanly at your own motives, behaviors, thoughts, feelings, how you are presenting yourself and influencing the world around you, and hold that carefully. That this is where we have the greatest power, is developing personal mastery. That is cultivating a really keen awareness so that we are showing up in the world as carefully, skillfully, compassionately, and with as much wisdom as possible. So that was a whole lot of his teaching that I love. I love that. Okay, so here's the prayer Khatum to close up our time today. And I think I have another minute to describe to you. I thought that we were going to do a bunch of Murshid's melodic zikr today, which we didn't. But in the Sufi movement, this is the organization that Hidayat was responsible for. And Hidayat composed very, very simple accompaniment for Murshid's 4 phases of the melodic zikr. And this is the zikr that is done in the Sufi movement all the time. That is a recording that is put on that has like synthesizer, very simple accompaniment, musical instrument accompaniment, and everybody sits quietly and sings the melodic zikr with the gestures 100 times. And then it moves to the second phase of music, and everyone does the movements and the melody for the second phase 100 times. And then the third phase 100 times, the fourth phase 100 times. It takes 58 minutes, and then everyone silently leaves the room. And that is the zikr every single time. Yeah. It's so different. And there's a serious power about it. Like, it is not like in our sensibility, we have so much organic movement about it, and changing the tempo and the volume, and like keeping ourselves engaged and entertained. And this is like, it's not about entertainment. You know what's coming for the next 100 repetitions of your life. Showing up with sincerity. Well, it changes every. Yeah. Okay. The prayer Khatum. O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. Happy birthday to Hidayat. Okay, thank you, friends. Let me stop this recording.